Jesus freak here. Now, you'll hear people say, oh, the Bible talks about prosperity, 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 and God wants you to be prosperous or whatever. Meanwhile, I'm looking up the word. And I don't see that. Not in the sense that they think it's there. A lot of the time, prosperity is seen as either neutral or even negative. Like, people who prosper in this life but it's an empty prosperity. So I look here, I look in the section on prosperity. You have sections on prosperity of the wicked, perils of prosperity. Prosperity of the wicked takes about a full column. Prosperity of its perils, its evil effects take almost a column. Prosperity, worldly fullness is about a column. Prosperity of the righteousness is about a column and a half, but then you look at a lot of this. And it's not necessarily talking about prosperity in the sense we think, yeah, there's like a lot of wishing people prosperity, which is, just common decency. Saying you'll prosper if you follow the commandments. But then you look at most of the other stuff that's here about prosperity. And, it's not positive. Verses like, they are waxen fat, they shine, they overpass the deeds of the wicked, they judge not the cause of the fatherless, yet they prosper, and the right of the needy do they not judge. Or because thou sayest, I am rich and increased with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked, and stuff like that. Prosperity in a monetary sense, in a physical sense, in a worldly sense, is seen as negative. Where I think if prosperity is spoken favorably of, we're not talking that kind of prosperity. And honestly, it's that kind of prosperity that Jesus repeatedly condemns. It says, sell what you got, give it to the poor. Now, that of course can lead to the same problem just being passed. If You give it to people who don't have the knowledge of how to handle a windfall. If someone's sense of how to deal with a windfall is to save it for a rainy day, well, I might not save it for a rainy day monetarily. I might save it for a rainy day in some other way. Or a little of A, a little of B. It's not necessarily, put it in the bank and get some interest on it, or put it in stocks, because, I don't have enough to make interest off of, and I'm not putting it in stocks because that's gambling. When I think of scriptural prosperity, I don't think of health and wealth. I think of spiritual prosperity, peace of mind. That point at which you say, yeah, I don't have a lot, but I have a lot spiritually. Where your treasure is, your heart is, right? I think it's true that people say, a lot of kids grow up and have no knowledge of how to deal with real world situations. The parents ain't teaching them, the schools ain't teaching them. I was fortunate enough that's not the case for me. I learned how to balance a checkbook in fourth grade math. I don't use that. I keep enough track that if something went wrong on the bank side, I'm in a credit union because their fees are cheaper and such, even though they're less convenient. If something went wrong on their side, I know about it. But I don't actively keep records. I just broadly know how much I got. And if there's an easy way to check, then I do that. Something like online banking or sending a text message to get your balance. Back in the 1980s, that stuff was unheard of. And I avail myself of the technology I have to help myself with my situation. Like, they're poor because they spent $1,000 on a cell phone. Need $1,000 cell phone? I don't pay $1,000 for a cell phone. I never have. I think $220 for this phone I'm using as a camera now because I busted the corner. That's the most I paid for a phone. And it's more than I need. Because I understand, if you can get something significantly cheaper secondhand, then why not? Doesn't gotta be new. Like, this is why people are in hock up to their eyeballs, because they're so focused on keeping up with the Joneses. I don't need to keep up with the Joneses. I don't do anything for show. It might not look like I'm as utilitarian as I am. But I've said, y'all are hurting for money. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there who are spending money they ain't got for things that they don't need. Do I buy things I don't need? Yeah. But I'm looking at the prices and I'm keeping that stuff within a reasonable range. Yeah, I impulse buy. Every time I come home with a couple candy bars, that's an impulse purchase. Sometimes I channel my impulse buying into stuff that's not really that bad. When I get a wild hair and buy like 8 cans of this stuff. And it's probably just going to sit on the shelves for months. Because it's something, yeah, I like it. I'd eat it. Wouldn't eat it all the time because it ain't healthy. But it'll do in a pinch. That's the thing. I don't have that typical nouveau riche mindset that takes money and blows it right away on stuff I don't need. If I do get a lot of money, usually what it goes to is stuff I actually do need. Or at least stuff that would be of some use. Do I blow it now and then? Spent a few $100 on an old computer back about 5 years ago. When I bought my last laptop, yeah, I didn't need it that bad. It's like, I wanted a fallback machine that was better than what I had. Because my current computer has been flaky since I got it about 5 years ago. And yeah, it works. Works pretty well. But if something happens, something happens. I can't afford to replace it with something comparable. Not even secondhand. It's like, you don't need a computer. No, I don't. But it's a little more than just a creature comfort. Because a lot of my interaction with the world is through a computer. And a lot of the stuff I do relies on a computer. So I keep, a couple old clunkers in case I need them. And a really old clunker if I feel like messing around with that for, nostalgia. It's like, yeah, I do rely on modern computers, recent models. It's like, even this computer has secondhand parts in it. And instead of replacing things in it, instead of replacing the whole thing when something happens, I either squeak by or replace just a bit here, a bit here, a bit here. That's that's why I have a desktop. Because if something happens, it's easier to repair a desktop than it is to repair a laptop. I have a lot of these considerations in mind. Ways I don't have to spend as much money when something goes wrong. And a lot of people don't know how to deal with it. But that's why I'm able to survive on a limited income, where a lot of people can't. It's like, oh, you should be saving, you should be saving. Honestly, apart from a little rainy day fund, there's no benefit to me saving. I don't need that much money. So, if I do need the money for something, I go ad hoc and save a little bit. But the whole idea of, setting aside a nest egg or something, I don't need that. But, what about I'm basically retired since 23 because I've been on disability that whole time. That means I have a totally different mindset about this. But you think, that's that's why that's why I say I'm a square peg. I just don't fit the mold. Jesus freak out.